Arguably the most successful series of all time is back. Avatar Fire and Ash is the third installment in this James Cameron universe. It's always funny to me because even though on paper this series is ultra successful and profitable, even since the original, I have yet to see it be this pop culture juggernaut that it really should be. Like truthfully, it's an anomaly because there's no massive saturation of figures, plushies, lunchboxes, you know, all the memorabilia that you typically see with all those massive IPs like the MCU movies, for example. When something is so successful, think Titanic, Alien, Stranger Things, there's references to these things all over the place. Movies and shows will have nods to these IPs just because of how recognizable they are. But with the Avatar movies, they show up, everyone, and I mean everyone, goes to watch these movies and then they go back to being afterthoughts. Like honestly, I haven't thought about Way of Water since I left the theater after having watched the movie. Anyway, side tangent over, the Sully family is back after having fallen in love with 8K Water and the Water Tribe. And, you know, still trying to grow those gills to prove their loyalty. But despite their victory from the previous film, things don't settle, and actually in the midst of dealing with and processing the events that took place previously, their new tribe is attacked by a new foe, the Fire Tribe, who want to essentially burn everything to the ground. And an unlikely alliance proved to be the Sully's greatest challenge yet. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, I'm not the biggest fan of this series. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot to love in these movies. There's obviously stunning visuals, large-scale world building, where it honestly feels like the more these movies go on, the more I can color in a map of places that have been discovered. Basically like a Minecraft map. James Cameron has a very good eye for exploring complex character dynamics, specifically nuclear family dynamics. That's just one of his specialties. And you know, Way of Water showed me really pretty water to look at for like 2.5 hours. The thing is, these movies are really aesthetic and really pretty to look at, but I constantly find myself not seeing an equal amount of thematic substance in these movies. Like I don't walk away feeling like there's very much to talk about. It's kind of bizarre. I don't like to write off or lessen the impact of movies since I'm a firm believer of inherently every movie has something of value, but outside of how pretty these movies are, I struggle to feel strongly about these movies. They're definitely not boring either. It's not like it's a bad time, it's an Avatar movie. Nothing more, nothing less. But Jimmy though, I always trust that Jimmy will provide. He's a great director, he knows his craft, he knows what he's really strong at and what he's not. And all the talk about how he wants to bring this story literally closer to home and how he wants it to be set on Earth at some point and have all-out wars is certainly exciting. To no one's surprise, this movie looks gorgeous. It's so appealing to admire and marvel at. There's just an overwhelming sense of wonder and awe in these movies. Possibly more so than the Jurassic movies, but that's a conversation for a different day. And just like the previous entry, it's beautiful in the calmer Discovery Channel-esque water sequences, but it's equally impressive during the chaotic, big-budget action sequences as well. There's a great use of the environment too, where literally every level gets some love. The aerial fights, the ground fights, the mecha fights, all of it looks so cool. Like this is an expensive movie and it shows. No penny is spared in the making of this movie. I'll also say these movies in their own way are very consistent. Each time a new tribe is introduced, Jimmy finds a way to make them distinguished and have the viewer very fascinated with them. There's always a really powerful cool factor with the creativity of each tribe and making them feel so lived in as a people, regardless of whether or not you agree that they should have gotten some more screen time dedicated to them. Each tribe is unique, each character is unique and different, which again helps these locations never feel like just a new arena for a new battle, even though that's essentially what they are. I actually like how this new tribe is much more savage and ferocious. Some might even say resentful and bitter since they have a differing belief from others on Pandora. I think the way Spider is proving to be this pivotal character in this story is not only original, but it's also showing how he is a key role in the big overall picture. What looked like lazy writing at first ended up being a stick of dynamite on the entire chessboard, because it really molds into something that affects everybody and alters what is and isn't possible on Pandora. But without a shadow of a doubt, my favorite aspect of the entire movie was the spicy dynamic between the Colonel and Varang. It's playful, it's intense, it's manipulative, it's borderline toxic, and it serves as good content to give the Colonel as he is the consistent antagonist in this story. To me, there's always something so fun about seeing two rivals have to put their differences aside, so getting to see Jake and the Colonel play on neutral ground was really exciting. Varang is the most exciting introduction to this series, as she is the perfect character to bounce off of the Colonel and become a true villain against the Sully family tree. That there though is as good as it gets, because for the rest of the ride, it was so middling. Can you believe for as long as Way of Water was, part of this movie was dedicated to showing the actual story that was supposed to happen in Way of Water, but wasn't because we couldn't possibly cut short the Pretty Water screen time. So the pacing of this movie was massively harmed because of how familiar a lot of this felt to Way of Water. At some point, there's a hard cut to essentially a recap of some of the biggest moments of Way of Water. Movies that have over 3 hours worth of runtime should be able to justify its runtime. I personally get annoyed when people say a movie shouldn't be longer than 90 minutes, because some stories are so rich and deserve to be fleshed out, and they should need that runtime. But it shouldn't be long just because it has to recap stuff that we already learned in the previous entry. I loved and thought it was very important that we mourned the loss from the second movie because it makes sense. The movie should acknowledge that and not treat it like anything less, especially since this series is so focused on family. So spending time to deal with that pain made sense, but retreading the other stuff is what ended up feeling gratuitous and unnecessary. I was also at least expecting this movie to be focused on the fire people, as last movie was focused on the whales and the water people, but it's really frustrating that that's not the case. The fire tribe have such a small amount of time to show us them as people, and it kinda does the bare minimum, and it sucks because it could have given them such cool lore. There's still emotional beats in the movie that mostly depend on the teenage characters, but it felt kinda cringy, and like despite being in the super fantastical and heightened scenario, the dialogue felt uncomfortably normal and with an annoying teenage flavor. There's plenty of emotional stuff with the Sullys, Neytiri, and of course Spider, but the performances didn't sell me on a strong enough emotional level, despite the scenarios presented meriting a visceral emotional reaction. And when it's all said and done, and the dust settles from all the big action sequences, it doesn't feel like we learned anything new. And that's the most frustrating part about this movie. It really does feel like we're relearning what we just learned in the last movie. It's basically the same ending as Way of Water, but this being the third installment in this series, we should have had a huge jaw-dropping moment. Instead, it ended up feeling pretty safe. I also don't blame you if you didn't even realize that there's an air tribe that are basically nomads that are peaceful and essentially neutral. With all of like 5 minutes in a 3+ hour long epic, no one's gonna remember them because they're basically an afterthought and are treated as such. It's just a wasted opportunity to give them more of an identity. Could have been cool plot points involving them, but no, we gotta get back to the action. Maybe in the next movie they get some love, I don't know. It's another blockbuster, it's another Avatar movie, you're not gonna be won over if you're not a fan this late in the game. And it's definitely still gonna make an absurd amount of money. Ultimately, this movie is fine. I just wish Jimmy would not play it so safe and break the mold, take that bold step that would really ruffle everyone's feathers. There's still like 7 other tries based on how much Jimmy says is still left in this story, so maybe next time. But that's it for me. I'd appreciate a thumbs up, subscribe, happy holidays, and sincerely yours, Anthony.